The summoning of Earth, the Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, suspended in the void between stars. Holographic pillars rose from the floor, each representing one of the 47 elder civilizations that had ruled the known universe for millennia. At the center, High Arbiter Zelthar of the Kryn Dominion raised his 6 crystalline arms, demanding silence. "We gather today," his voice resonated through translation matrices, "to address the anomaly." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Velkhori beings of pure energy flickered with curiosity. The Thoraxian hive mind chittered in their collective consciousness. Even the ancient preservers who had witnessed galaxies being born leaned forward with interest. "Earth," Zelthar continued, and the word hung in the air like a curse. A Class 7 developmental world, primitive, quarantined for the past 50,000 cycles. And yet, he gestured and the central display ignited with data streams, mathematical equations that made no sense, energy signatures that violated known physics, transmission signals that seemed to bend causality itself. "They have done something impossible," whispered Ambassador Lyra of the Celestine Federation, her luminous form dimming with concern. "The readings suggest they've achieved quantum entanglement across dimensional barriers. That technology is theoretical even for us." "Impossible," grunted Commander Vrax, the war-scarred leader of the Talon Empire. "These creatures still use combustion engines. They fight among themselves over patches of dirt. My scouts reported they barely left their own moon a century ago. And yet," Zelthar's voice cut through, 3 solar cycles ago, every deep space monitoring station in this sector detected a pulse, a single unified transmission from their planet that reached instantaneously across 40,000 light years. No lag, no degradation, pure instantaneous communication. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Kazthen, the Preserver's chief scientist, materialized at the front. Her species had catalogued 10 million civilizations across their 3 billion-year existence. Her voice carried the weight of eons. "I have analyzed this species extensively since the incident. They call themselves humans. Biologically, they are unremarkable, carbon-based, short-lived, fragile. But their development curve is unprecedented." She pulled up a historical timeline. 50,000 years ago, they were using stone tools. 10,000 years ago, they learned agriculture. 5,000 years ago, they built cities. 500 years ago, they still believed their planet was the center of the universe. The data streams accelerated, images flashing faster and faster. 100 years ago, they achieved powered flight. 70 years ago, they split the atom. 50 years ago, they reached their moon. 20 years ago, they built a global information network connecting their entire species. And now the image froze on a structure. It was elegant, impossible. A lattice of pure light suspended in Earth's orbit, pulsing with energy that seemed alive. "They call it the resonance array," Dr. Kazthen said quietly. "Built in secret by a coalition of their scientists, philosophers, and artists. Not their governments. Not their military. They're dreamers." "Dreamers?" Vrax laughed, but it sounded hollow. "What kind of weapon is built by dreamers?" "That's precisely the point, Commander," Zelthar replied. "It is not a weapon. Our analysts believe it is a communication device, but unlike anything in our archives. It doesn't transmit information through space, it transmits through connection. Through empathy. Through what they call understanding." "Absurd," spat the Velkhori representative. "Communication requires information transfer, protocols, logic structures." "Yes," Dr. Kazthen agreed. "And that is why we cannot comprehend it. This device operates on principles we have forgotten, or perhaps never knew. It speaks to consciousness itself." High Arbiter Zelthar's expression hardened. "This council has maintained order for 2 million years. We have rules, protocols. Any species that develops faster than approved parameters must be managed. Earth has violated every developmental milestone we've established. They are dangerous precisely because they are unpredictable. So we issue the standard judgment," Ambassador Lyra asked, though her voice trembled. "Containment? Or elimination?" The words hung heavy. Across the chamber, representatives shifted uncomfortably. They had done this before. Sealed away or quietly erased civilizations that grew too quickly, too strangely, too differently from the approved path. "There is another option," Dr. Kazthen said. "We could contact them, study them, learn what makes them different. and risk them contaminating the galactic order? Vrax growled. No, we vote now. But before the vote could begin, every display in the chamber blazed white. The translation matrices screamed. And then, impossibly, a voice, human, female, calm, spoke directly into their minds. Hello, we know you're watching. We've been listening to your silence for a very long time. Our scientists wondered when you would finally notice us. We have a message for your council. Zelthar's crystalline arms trembled. This is impossible. This frequency is encrypted with mathematics based on the assumption that consciousness is separate from the universe. The voice continued. We think differently. We learned something you forgot. That observation changes reality. That intention shapes matter. That the universe isn't something we exist in, it's something we exist with. Who are you? Dr. Kaz then whispered. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm a quantum physicist, a violinist, and a mother of two, and I'm speaking to you from Earth. Not through your machines, but through the resonance array. Through the collective intention of 8 billion human minds focused on a single thought. We are ready to meet you. The chamber erupted in chaos. And somewhere in that pandemonium, as 47 civilizations shouted and argued and tried to sever the connection that couldn't be severed, High Arbiter Zelthar felt something he hadn't experienced in his 4,000-year life. Fear. The impossible dialogue. The Galactic Council chamber descended into pandemonium. Energy beings flickered erratically. Hive minds fragmented into conflicting thoughts. Ancient preservers who had witnessed the birth and death of stars stood frozen in disbelief. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice continued, impossibly calm amid the chaos. Please don't be alarmed. We're not here to threaten you. We're here because we believe the universe is better when we talk to each other instead of hiding. Commander Vrax slammed his armored fist against his console, shattering the crystalline surface. This is a Class 7 world. They shouldn't even know we exist. How are they bypassing every quantum encryption we possess? High Arbiter Zelthar forced himself to breathe, to think. His training screamed at him that this was impossible. No civilization without faster-than-light travel could penetrate Council security. No species still bound to a single planet could communicate across dimensional barriers without the technology they'd spent millions of years developing. And yet here she was. A human. Speaking directly into their minds, Dr. Chen, Zelthar said, struggling to maintain his authority. You are violating protocols established over 2 million years. Cease this transmission immediately or we will be forced to what? Sarah's voice held no mockery, only genuine curiosity. Arbiter, we've been monitoring your deliberations for the past 3 months. We know you're debating whether to quarantine us permanently or erase us entirely. We understand your concern. From your perspective, we must seem reckless, dangerous even. Ambassador Lyra's luminous form pulsed with agitation. Then you understand why we cannot allow this to continue. Civilizations must develop along approved pathways, structure, order, control. Without these principles, chaos consumes everything. Does it? Sarah asked softly. Or does order sometimes become another word for stagnation? The chamber fell silent. It was Dr. Kaz then who finally spoke. Her ancient voice filled with something that might have been wonder. How did you do it, Dr. Chen? The resonance array operates on principles that defy our understanding of physics. We've had 47 species' greatest minds analyzing your transmission for weeks. We cannot replicate it. For the first time, Sarah's voice carried emotion, not pride, but something gentler. We asked a different question than you did. Your civilizations asked, how do we conquer space? We asked, how do we connect with it? You built faster ships. We built deeper understanding. Explain, Zelthar demanded. 3 years ago, Sarah began. A small group of scientists, artists, musicians, and philosophers gathered in secret, not because our governments forbade it, but because we knew they wouldn't understand. We'd been studying your civilizations through the fragments of data that leaked through your quarantine barriers, and we noticed something strange. She paused and images began flowing into the Council's displays, not transmitted through their systems, but appearing directly in their consciousness. They saw Earth, a blue marble suspended in darkness. They saw humans, billions of them spread across continents speaking thousands of languages, creating endless varieties of art and music and stories. You've achieved incredible things, Sarah continued. You've built empires that span galaxies. You've mastered physics, conquered death, archived entire civilizations. But somewhere along the way you stopped asking the questions that have no answers. You stopped dreaming impossible dreams. Dreams are inefficient, Vrax growled. They serve no tactical purpose, don't they? Sarah's voice carried a smile they could somehow sense. Commander, your species' ancient texts, the ones from before you joined the Council, they're filled with poetry. With songs about honor and sacrifice and the beauty of a sunset on your twin moons. When did you stop singing? Vrax said nothing. Around the chamber, representatives shifted uncomfortably. The Velkhori's energy patterns dimmed. The Thraxian hive mind went unnaturally quiet. Dr. Castan leaned forward. You're suggesting we've lost something. I'm suggesting, Sarah said gently, that you've optimized yourselves into forgetting what it means to be alive. You've mastered the universe, but you've forgotten how to wonder at it. And the resonance array? Zelthar pressed. How does this philosophy translate into technology that breaks our laws of physics? It doesn't break them, Sarah explained. It just operates on laws you've forgotten exist. Quantum entanglement. Observer effect. The proven fact that consciousness affects reality at the subatomic level. Your scientists know this, but you've categorized it as an inconvenient anomaly, rather than a fundamental truth. Images flowed faster now. The Council saw the resonance array being built, not in some military facility, but in collaborative spaces around Earth. Scientists working beside musicians. Engineers consulting with philosophers. Mathematicians learning from artists. We combined quantum physics with something your civilizations abandoned, the understanding that meaning matters. That intention shapes reality. That 8 billion minds, focused together with hope and curiosity and the genuine desire to connect, that creates a force more powerful than any engine you've built. Impossible, Vrax muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Sarah challenged. Your own records show that every civilization before joining the Council had myths about the power of collective belief. Prayer, ritual, magic you called it, before you dismissed it as superstition. But what if it wasn't superstition? What if it was a technology you simply didn't have the instruments to measure? Ambassador Lyra spoke, her voice barely a whisper. We abandoned those practices because they were inconsistent, unreliable. Science gave us predictability. And in exchange, Sarah said softly, you gave up wonder. You built a universe of absolute order and absolute loneliness. When was the last time any of you were truly surprised? When did you last create something just to see if you could? When did you last take a risk that made your hearts race? The silence stretched. In that moment, 47 civilizations confronted a truth they'd spent eons avoiding. So what do you want, Dr. Chen? Zelthar asked finally. Why reveal yourselves now? Why not simply keep developing in secret? Because isolation isn't survival, Sarah answered. We could have hidden, built our array and slipped away into dimensional spaces you can't follow, but that's not who we want to be. We reached out because despite everything, despite knowing you might destroy us for it, we believe in connection. We believe the universe is better when we share it. You risk everything on belief? Vrax asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Commander, Sarah said warmly, we risk everything on belief every single day. Every time we love someone. Every time we create art. Every time we reach for something greater than ourselves. That's not a weakness. That's what makes us human. And then, before anyone could respond, Sarah added words that would echo through the chamber for cycles to come. The question isn't whether we're ready to join your council. The question is, are you ready to remember what you've forgotten? The transmission flickered, and in that flickering moment, every representative in that chamber felt something they hadn't experienced in millennia, the electric thrill of genuine uncertainty. High Arbiter Zelthar looked at the faces around him, the energy beings, the hive minds, the ancient preservers, and saw his own wonder reflected back. Dr. Chen, he said slowly, perhaps we should meet in person. The descent to Earth, the decision to send a delegation to Earth sparked the fiercest debate in Council history. For 3 solar cycles, representatives argued, calculated risk assessments, and reviewed contingency protocols. Commander Vrax insisted on bringing a full battle fleet. Ambassador Lyra advocated for diplomatic immunity shields. Dr. Castan simply wanted to go immediately. Consequences be damned. In the end, High Arbiter Zelthar made the decision himself. We go as guests, he declared. 7 representatives. No weapons, no shields. If humanity truly operates on principles of connection and trust, then we must demonstrate we understand those principles, even if they terrify us. Vrax looked at him as if he'd suggested walking into a supernova. You're willing to bet the future of the Council on the word of a species that still wages wars over resources? I'm willing to bet on the possibility, Zelthar replied quietly, that we might learn something that could save us from our own perfection. The delegation was chosen carefully. Zelthar himself would lead. Dr. Kaz then would provide scientific insight. Ambassador Lyra would handle diplomacy. Commander Vrax would assess strategic implications, and though no one said it aloud, serve as their warrior if things went wrong. 3 others joined. Echelon 9, a Thoraxian hive mind representative. Shimmer, a young Velkori who still remembered what curiosity felt like. And Ancient Morvath, a preserver so old he had witnessed the Council's founding. Their ship, sleek, elegant, and capable of destroying planets, descended through Earth's atmosphere on a clear autumn morning. Dr. Sarah Chen had suggested they land in Iceland. Neutral ground, she'd explained. Beautiful. Isolated enough for privacy, but close enough to civilization that you can see how we actually live. Plus, the northern lights are visible this time of year. I thought you might appreciate them. The ship settled onto a volcanic plain, black stone stretching to horizons framed by mountains and glaciers. As the delegation emerged, they experienced Earth's atmosphere for the first time. The bite of cold air, the smell of mineral-rich soil, the sound of wind across empty spaces. It's so quiet, Shimmer whispered, her energy form flickering with surprise. Wait, Sarah's voice called out. They turned to see her approaching, not materializing from thin air, not transmitted holographically, but walking. Actually walking across the volcanic stone, wrapped in a thick coat, her breath misting in the cold air. She was smaller than they'd expected, fragile-looking. Her hair was streaked with gray, her face lined with years of smiling and thinking. She looked utterly, impossibly ordinary. And yet, as she approached, Zelthar felt the same presence that had penetrated their most secure chamber. Not power in the traditional sense. Something else. Something they had no word for. Welcome to Earth, Sarah said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Zelthar stared at the offered hand. In his culture, physical contact was reserved for combat or mating. The idea of touching a stranger was unsettling. Sarah waited, patient and smiling. Slowly, Zelthar extended one crystalline arm and touched her hand. Her skin was warm, soft, alive in a way his crystalline form had never been. Thank you for coming, Sarah said. I know how much courage this took. Come, there's someone I want you to meet. She led them across the volcanic plain to a structure that seemed to grow. From the stone itself, a building made of glass and geothermally heated wood, organic and geometric at once. Inside, a fire burned in a central hearth. The walls were lined with books, actual physical books, thousands of them. And sitting around the fire were 7 more humans. This is the team that built the resonance array. Sarah introduced them. Dr. James Okoye, quantum physicist from Nigeria. Mei Lin, mathematician and composer from China. Raj Patel, philosopher and programmer from India. Maria Santos, neuroscientist and poet from Brazil. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, engineer and traditional tea master from Japan. Alex Wolf, artist and theoretical physicist from Canada. And Thomas Blackwater, indigenous elder and cosmologist from the Lakota Nation. Each human nodded in greeting. None of them looked like the galaxy-threatening geniuses the Council had expected. They looked ordinary, human, real. You're the ones responsible for breaching our security? Frax asked, incredulous. Us and about 8,000 others around the planet, James said with a gentle smile, plus the 8 billion who participated in the final resonance event. Sarah's the face of the project, but this was never about individuals. That's kind of the point. Sit, please. Sarah gestured to cushions arranged around the fire. We've prepared tea, or coffee if you prefer. We weren't sure about your dietary requirements, but we thought the ritual of sharing a warm drink might be a good place to start. The delegation exchanged glances. This was not how first contact protocols worked. There should be formal presentations, data exchanges, carefully negotiated treaties. Instead, They were being offered tea. Ancient Morvath, surprisingly, was the first to sit. The preserver folded his ancient form onto a cushion with a grace that belied his billions of years. I have not participated in a tea ceremony in 3 million cycles, he said quietly. We deemed such rituals inefficient. Inefficient at what? Yuki asked, beginning to prepare the tea with practiced movements. If the goal is simply to transfer nutrients, yes, drinking tea is inefficient. But if the goal is to create a moment of shared presence, to honor the water and the leaves and the fire and each other, then it's perfectly efficient at what it's meant to do. One by one, the delegation sat. Sarah poured tea into simple ceramic cups, each one handmade, each one unique. The liquid steamed in the cold air. Before we discuss the array, Sarah said, I'd like to ask you something. When you look at us, at humanity, what do you see? Zelthar considered the question carefully. I see a species on the verge of destroying itself. You still have poverty, war, disease. Your planet is dying from your own industrial processes. You're fractured into nearly 200 governments that can barely cooperate. You're violent, short-sighted, and reckless. Sarah nodded, not offended. All true, and, Dr. Kaz then interjected softly, we see a species that in 50,000 years has gone from stone tools to quantum consciousness manipulation. We see 8 billion individuals who maintain distinct identities while achieving collective action. We see a civilization that creates art for no survival purpose, that explores simply to satisfy curiosity, that risks everything to reach beyond themselves. We see, Ambassador Lyra added, her voice wondering, what we used to be. Before we optimized ourselves into perfection. The fire crackled. Outside, the first hints of aurora began dancing across the darkening sky. May I tell you a story? Thomas Blackwater spoke for the first time, his weathered face illuminated by firelight. My people have a teaching. We say that the universe is made of stories, not atoms. That everything, stars, stones, spirits, people, everything is a story the universe tells itself. That's metaphor, Vrax objected. Not scientific fact, is it? Raj leaned forward. Quantum physics tells us that particles exist in superposition until observed, until they become part of a narrative of measurement. Relativity tells us that time and space are relative to the observer, to the story being told from that perspective. What if consciousness isn't an accident of evolution, but the universe's way of experiencing itself? What if stories aren't metaphor but the fundamental code of reality? Echelon 9's hive mind buzzed thoughtfully. Our collective has discussed similar concepts. We dismiss them as philosophical rather than practical. But what if practical and philosophical aren't opposites? Maria suggested. What if the most practical thing we can do is understand the deeper meaning of what we're doing? The resonance array, Alex added, works because it's not just technology. It's a story we told together. 8 billion people imagining connection, believing in communication, focusing their consciousness on reaching out. The quantum mechanics just provided the grammar for the story to be told. Dr. Kasthen's ancient eyes were bright. You're suggesting consciousness itself is a fundamental force. We're not suggesting it, Mei Lin said. We've proven it. The array doesn't transmit signals through space. It creates coherence in consciousness itself. When enough minds align on a single intention, reality shifts to accommodate that intention. You know this is true. Your own quantum experiments showed consciousness collapses wave functions. You just never asked what would happen if billions of consciousnesses collapsed them together. All at once, all toward the same purpose. The implications hung in the air, vast and terrifying and wonderful. If this is true, Zelthar said slowly, then everything we've built, our empires, our technologies, our perfect order, all of it rests on a foundation we don't fully understand. Yes, Sarah said simply. Welcome to being human. We live with uncertainty every day, and you know what? It's beautiful. Shimmer flickered with something that might have been excitement. What is it like? To not know? To be uncertain? The humans looked at each other and smiled. It's like standing at the edge of an ocean you've never seen before, James said. It's like hearing music you've never imagined, Mei-Lin added. It's like falling in love, Maria said softly, terrifying and exhilarating at once. It's being alive, Thomas concluded. Really, truly alive. Commander Vrax set down his teacup. His hands were shaking. I don't understand. You could have weaponized this technology. With the array, you could dominate the galaxy, force every civilization to join your narrative. Why didn't you? Sarah met his eyes steadily. Because that's not a story worth telling. We didn't reach out to conquer, Commander. We reached out to invite you to remember something you'd forgotten. Which is? Zelthar asked. Outside, the aurora blazed brighter, green and purple and gold dancing across the sky. Sarah stood and walked to the window, and the delegation followed. They stood together looking up at the lights. That the universe isn't something to be controlled, Sarah said quietly. It's something to be wondered at. That efficiency isn't the same as meaning. That order without chaos is just another kind of death, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is remain curious. Ancient Morvath began to weep. It was the first time in 3 billion years that his kind had produced tears. We have made a terrible mistake, he whispered. In our pursuit of perfection, we have lost ourselves. Maybe, Sarah said gently, turning to face them all. Or maybe you've just been waiting for a reason to remember. Maybe you needed someone still young enough, still foolish enough, still curious enough to ask you, what if there's another way? High Arbiter Zelthar looked at this small, fragile human standing in firelight and aurora glow, and felt his carefully constructed worldview beginning to crack, not breaking. Opening. Dr. Chen, he said, I think we need to renegotiate how first contact works, Sarah smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. But first, stay the night. Tomorrow we'll show you more of Earth, not our technology, not our weapons or our cities. We'll show you what makes us human, our music, our art, our stories, the things we create simply because we can, because we must, because we're alive and the universe is beautiful and we can't help but respond to that beauty. And then, Ambassador Lyra asked, and then, Sarah said, we'll talk about what comes next, not as a council evaluating a species, but as beings who share this impossible, wonderful universe. As friends, if you're willing. She extended her hand again. This time it wasn't just Zelthar who reached out to take it. It was all of them. The story continues beyond first contact. But this moment, this choice to reach out, to connect, to risk everything for the possibility of understanding, this is where humanity truly shocked the galaxy. Not with weapons, not with technology, but with the simple revolutionary act of remaining beautifully, dangerously, impossibly human. The end.